So we are live here from Garfield Memorial Church. Well, virtually Garfield Memorial Church. I'm Terry McHugh, serve as the executive pastor, and Curt Bissell on his way home from his day job. But we're here for Faith on Fridays at 5 o'clock. And this is a time when we have conversations with different folks. And today we're talking with Pastor Curt about online ministry. He's been our online campus pastor for a couple of years now and made a huge impact. And we want to talk a little bit about kind of the state of online experience right now, and also what he's learned in the last 5 or 6 months as we've been completely online. We've added a few in-person opportunities, but our main worship experiences are online. And we've done small groups and things like Faith on Fridays and Worship Wednesdays and other musings as ways to engage. As I said on Sunday during the Mosaic service, that we spend maybe an hour a week, if we're lucky, if we're very regular in worship. And so we need to really seize the 167, the other 167 hours. And part of how we do that is through the online ministries and experiences. And as we've been, just going through the internet, going through virtual experiences, I was thinking about, there's a part of it that, I'm really grateful for the technology. There's also, it's a reminder that God is not limited by anything, right? So Psalm 139 says, "Where can I go from your spirit?" And we've been reminded during these months that God's spirit penetrates through the internet and virtually. And we've heard a lot of stories of impact of people. So that's part of what we want to talk about. But so Pastor Curt, good to have you on as always. And just want to check in and maybe say a little bit about yourself, and we'll get started.
Thank you.
So I know Curt is in transition, so I actually seeing you both on the screen there, Curt.
Absolutely. Thanks, Terry. Yes. So, first of all, I am driving hands-free, and I will be home in about 3 minutes. You concerned about? Terry, are you there? Am I there?
Yeah, I am there. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, you're kind of going in and out. So.
All right. Well, I'm almost, like I said, I'm almost home. So hopefully I won't go in and out anymore. But yeah, as Terry said, I've been the online campus pastor now for a little over 2 years, I think. And I think it might be helpful, Terry, to kind of give a background of how it worked, how this kind of came about before COVID even, because, everybody wants an online campus pastor now. And we wanted one 2 years before it was cool to do. And I still don't know that it's cool to do, but it certainly is necessary. So,
yeah.
Terry, do you want to give maybe a little bit of background on what you and Chip were thinking?
Yeah, and your voice is a little bit wavery, so people may not have been able to hear, but Curt was just asking me to share a little bit about how we ended up. Curt's been online campus pastor for 2 years, and a lot of people were thrust into online worship and streaming worship rather suddenly a couple months ago, almost 6 months ago, and we had been doing that for a little bit. And we had really some volunteers and others that were streaming our worship services through Facebook Live. And we realized that that online is where people are. And Jesus.
Do you want to give some?
Curt, I'm having a little trouble understanding you. So I'm going to just talk for a little bit. So Curt will be jumping back on. He's just in transition. But as I was saying, that we actually we recruited Pastor Curt. He's an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church working in financial planning. But we knew he's a gifted pastor and had facility with the online world. And we felt that we needed to really invest time and resources and leadership in online, because that's where people are. And as I was saying, that Jesus always goes at where people are, and that people are engaging online, and that we realize that especially if people are not able to be physically present in worship, in the past. Now, most people can't be, but if people were out of town, they would be able to still keep up and be in regular worship. That's one of the things we talked about in our Planted series that we're currently doing. But really saw the importance, and Pastor Chip really had a vision for this, that we needed to have someone who would be interacting with people and engaging with people during the online worship experiences, and also creating other experiences, small groups, engaging. We hear about social media, but we came to realize that having social ministry was really what we could leverage some of these platforms that people are on for. And so that was really why we invited Curt to be part of our team. And he's been, jumping into it ever since. But then it was really for such a time as this, when we had to suddenly, like many other churches, the second Sunday in March, go completely online. We felt really blessed that we were prepared, that we had a staff person who was dedicated to that and who would be able to continue to help us engage. And so that's a little bit of, how we got where we are with Pastor Curt. And we're, as I said, we're really blessed to have him, and he is coming back in just a second. So welcome back.
Hey. Sorry about that. It kicked me off, and I was like, I'll just get home and hopefully we'll be good to go. So
yeah, no worries. So I was just sharing a little bit about how you ended up as our online campus pastor, and that Pastor Chip really had that vision and saw that we needed to invest in social ministry, not just social media, and invest more of our resources and our energy into the online platforms, because that's where people are. And so we need to, need to do that. So we're really blessed that we had something in place. We didn't have to scramble. We did scramble in some ways to move everything online, but at least we had the online platform. We had the Facebook. We then got a YouTube channel and, found some other avenues. But so it's not been, I guess, exactly baptism by fire, but in some ways, this last 6 months has really put a different perspective in some ways on the importance of online. And I think, I've heard a lot of ministry leaders say that, they'd really felt like it wasn't real ministry, and now they're starting to realize. But I think we've known all along, it's real connection, it's real ministry. It has its limitations, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But
sure,
it's real. It's virtual, but it's real, and people do connect, and there is impact, and we really want to leverage that as a tool. Brady Shearer is a podcaster and has a podcast called Coach Church Tools, and he talks about that we're experiencing the biggest revolution in communications the last 500 years. And so how do we take the timeless message of the gospel and communicate it in the tools that God is giving us now? So
yeah, that's I when you talked about the 167, to peel, we stole it from Breer.
That's true.
And they all website, so they've been a real influence in us. So, and Terry, if this is the biggest communication shift in the last 500 years, the last 5 months really may have become the biggest church shift in the last 500 years.
That's true.
Wow. I mean, we're just seeing people do ministry. And I do appreciate you saying that, online ministry is real ministry. Mm-hmm. It has been for the last 2 years that we've been doing it. And I think it will continue to be that. for sure. So it's, yeah, it was exciting to come on and start doing this ministry when we started it. In the last 5 months, we would be remiss to say it has been stressful. The change, to going completely virtual has been difficult in a lot of ways. But I've been really impressed with how the group as a whole has responded and been flexible, and really been receptive to people's needs. Even to the point now where we're starting to revision, because we've been at this for, let's see, March, April, May, June, and now all of July. We're into our 6th month really of being virtual. I think for anybody that, when the governor of Ohio closed schools back in the middle of March, I don't know that any of us could have seen what was coming, today. And especially for churches, it felt like, well, maybe close the building for a couple of weeks and then move on. And it's become so much more than that. There's a church in the center of the town that I live in, and on their sign, it said worship canceled for the longest time. And I was like, I am so glad. Like, we have been emphatic. Worship has not been canceled. The church has not closed. And I give a lot of credit to Pastor Chip for that leadership of saying, like, no, we're not closed. Nothing can close us.
Yeah.
Not in that way. And so seeing my job go to sort of a peripheral to center stage very quickly was like, whoa. But it's been a blessing to be a part of it. But Terry, how have you been feeling? I mean, we've been doing so much online, and you're a relational person, and so am I. And, we love being around people, maybe me more than you. I don't know. But what have been some of the struggles that you've experienced with going online?
Well, I think so. The sort of a positive part that I was surprised at in worship, because we've been leading the Mosaic service without people in the building until the last couple of weeks, and it's very, very limited. I still felt the presence of people that, through the Holy Spirit, like we felt like there were people in the room. But at the same time, I think that I miss some of the casual contacts that are just, as you see people on a Sunday, as you see people in small groups, and even in some of the meetings that I'm part of, that those sort of touch bases. So I feel like I've had to become a lot more intentional about keeping connected with folks. And, whether it's like this, by Zoom or by text or phone and other ways. And so I think it's harder to keep that sense of, not that we can keep track of people, of everybody as much as we want in the size church of Garfield. That really extends out to everybody more needing to be part of a group to connect. But I think, I guess I hadn't really thought about it that specifically, but I think it's those casual touch points that build up into relationships, as well. The deeper, there's still been some pastoral counseling and, a lot of the things that we do as pastors continue on, but it's in a different format and having to, really adjust to that. But I do think that there is, and the really engagement is a word we use a lot on our team. And I'm really passionate about wanting people to be engaged. So I think what's hard about it is having to constantly think and readjust. Like you said, we're going into month 6 and we're rethinking the things that we did to start with. That's a very quick timeline, right, of change. Like, not that you get settled in your ways, but in the church, like, well, maybe you do a worship service one way, maybe for a couple of years, and then you rethink it. But I think it's much more like we got to be on our toes, and because there is, I think, and I know we were going to talk about this, but I think there's a weariness in people, and we want to still, support people, help them grow spiritually, and help them feel connected. And so that has been, difficult. We neither of us, nor did, Chip or Scott or anybody, we didn't have any training in this in seminary. And so, adjusting to this.
Social I started seminary in 2004, Terry, and Facebook started in 2003. I think if you go back and do that. So it should time out just a second. I'll be right.
Okay. Yeah. So if I know there's a couple folks on, if there's any questions you have for Pastor Curt, you can put them in the chat. And any comments you have, if you're watching on as your experience as, you know, being online and being part of our online experiences, we want to hear from you. And if there are ways that you think of that could help you feel more connected that maybe we aren't thinking of. So we are always looking for feedback, that's for sure.
So you got any questions out there, Terry? I'm on my phone, so if I flip to my Facebook, you'll lose my picture. But
not yet, but I'll keep an eye on that to see if
all right.
Pop up.
Very good. So I think that weariness is something that a lot of us are feeling right now. And I was starting to say is, back in 2004 when I started seminary, like Facebook was barely a thing, let alone Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, online church wasn't a thing. So we certainly didn't get training in it, and yet we've been getting ourselves trained on the fly here. So it's when I first church that I led, it was a small room, and we revamped worship when I first got there, and we spent a year and a half talking about revamping worship before we even started revamping worship. So in this time frame, we revamped worship in a week, and now 6 months later we're talking about revamping it again. That's not the 18-month timeline that I was on in the past. So
you make
but I want to talk about. Go ahead.
Well, this is really a sidebar, but I hadn't thought about it. But when we were getting ready we wanted to start a more modern service than we had when Chip and I first got here, and we were looking for a worship leader to do that, and it took us 2 years to find Justin Mackey, and then to plan a service, and then it took a really long time to find Dre and Leah. So it's that's an excellent point that we had to pivot really, really fast.
Yeah. And I think that's a credit to our team is again, right now, we're in a time of pivoting again, because we recognize that what we've done for 6 months now is starting to feel a little bit wearisome, I think. And not that it's been bad, not that it's not been of, pretty good quality. Although you got to call out that the online pastor is having technical difficulties. That's pretty ironic. But
it is ironic.
It is, isn't it? There's a song about that. Anyhow, but I mean, it's been a real credit to the ways that we're saying, you know what, people are tired right now, and we do need to switch things up and keep them fresh. I'm reading lots of conversations about, Zoom and just online fatigue in general. When we first started the online, when we went completely virtual online, we were seeing up to like 1,500 people tuning in. And the numbers are definitely lower than that now. And I think a lot of it, Terry, is that people are tired. They're tired of looking at screens all day, and they do yearn for that human connection. And I know there's some ways that we're trying to address that, knowing that a lot of people probably aren't going to feel comfortable and back to the building for quite a while still. They still need to grow spiritually. One of the tips that I would give people, I spend a lot of time on Zoom for client meetings and stuff like that, is turn your self view off so that you're not looking at yourself the entire time.
Right.
I don't know, maybe you're not as vain as I am, but I'm like, I've got my picture up in the corner right now, and I looking at it as half the as I am looking at you. And it's much easier to look at you than it is to look at myself. It's actually tiring.
Right.
And I think most people would feel that way. Like, you don't just engage with who you are. And you don't worry about if your hair's in place or if what your facial expressions look like if you're just talking to somebody. But when you can see yourself, there's an emotional exhaustion there that I don't think we're designed to live in.
Yeah. And
so even if you're in a meeting or the kids are going back to school, lots of them are going online soon. Be aware of that. It's a little simple trick that I picked up from a newsletter I was reading, and I've tried to do a lot more of it. And I find myself able to engage in the conversation much better. So it's a completely unspiritual thing. I'm sure I could, it's spiritual if you want me to. There'd be some spiritual truth there, right?
Right.
But yeah, think about just trying something like that, what is it Paul that says, fix your eyes on Jesus?
The author and perfecter of our faith.
Is that?
Yeah.
What's the scripture? You know the scripture probably. I don't seem to know it.
I don't know where it's from, but I think it's fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, but I'm not going to go to the mat.
Yeah. That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. But I think the point there spiritually is when we fix our eyes ourselves, it can become very wearisome, very exhausting. And it's important that we serve others, that we just look at others. And so if we can get ourselves off of that screen, literally off screen, I think it actually can help us a little bit. But, I think we have to begin to rethink about, again, the value of human connection and how are we going to do that in this day and age of, COVID's not going anywhere, that probably for a while. And that's just trying to be realistic about it. Right. So how can we refresh our connections with people? I don't hear people doing their Zoom parties anymore and their Zoom happy hours and all of that stuff anymore. Now, maybe some folks are, but I don't think a lot of people are doing those anymore. My guess is because they're tired of doing it. They want to see people. So. And
if folks are just jumping in,
I know.
Go ahead. I was just
go ahead. You're good.
Let people know, Curt Bissell, our online campus pastor, and we're talking about online ministry and kind of what we're learning, what Curt's learning as he's been leading us in these last 6 months or so, and talking a little bit about the fatigue. So trying to keep fresh. And so if you have questions for us or thoughts on ways that we can help you feel engaged and part of community and feel that sense of human connection with the limitations that we have. So anyhow, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I that's good stuff. I know, a lot of schools right now are coming out with their, announcing what they're doing with their plans for the year, or at least the start of the year. And we're seeing a majority of them start remote, virtually. I know it was a train wreck for a lot of families in the spring. And I think that a lot of the school districts have had time to plan and hopefully see a better integration. But I know that's probably a stress for a lot of families in the next couple of weeks. Terry, we have a prayer meeting coming up, I think, for that, don't we?
Yeah. So, and we as a team, and Pastor Chip has put out there that we're really praying for all the families, and so we're going to have a Zoom gathering on next Tuesday, August 11th, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Now, this is a chance for parents of whatever age, whether it's little kids, college students, to gather and let us pray for you. Our house of prayer will be there, and we just want to lift you up and encourage you. We may have some breakout rooms so that you could spend some time just talking and sharing your experience with other parents. This isn't, a therapy session or anything like that, but it is a time to connect with prayer, and for you all to know that we're thinking about you. We're aware that it's a difficult and challenging situation, and that we're with you. So if you think you might want to come be part of that, you can just email Pastor Chip. It's Chip, CHIP, at garfieldchurch.org, and he'll send you the Zoom link. And then once you get that, if you have people that don't have to have anything to do with Garfield Church, you can invite them by sharing that link. So we're not going to publicly post that link, but if you email Chip and Chip at garfieldchurch.org, and he'll send the link, and we hope to see you there. So yeah, so that'll be a night to just do prayer and encourage folks and let them know that we know that it's a really hard time. And, you know, Curt, obviously you're a parent of young kids, and so you're in it. So, but
yeah, we definitely know what folks are feeling and going through with that. So yeah, and I would just throw out too, you know, there's a lot of supplies and stuff that people might be needing going back that they don't normally. I don't know that we're set up and equipped to do a whole lot right now, but let us know about those things, because I think technology is going to be hard for some folks. And I know we do have some resources, and I've got some ideas even of how we can help people with that, but it certainly, we want to hear that so that we can respond to those needs, if at all possible.
Yeah.
So you know somebody to talk to about that.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Husband Joe.
So I wanted to that's right. You can hook us up with technology. So I wanted to talk about some of the other things that we've done online with online small groups and our Bible app reading journey and stuff like that. So you know, I've had the chance, actually all pre-COVID, to lead some online Bible studies. Have you done any yet? And how did those go for you? I want to share about my experience, but how'd those go for you as well?
We did some online Zooms that we broadcast on Facebook Live. I said this, you heard that, kind of during the pandemic get together, and how are people so that I said this, you heard that as a study of temperaments, how we're wired. And Kathleen Edelman came already last September and taught us on that. We did a bunch of groups then, and then we thought, you know, this is pretty valuable, learning how we're wired and how we respond to stress and how we respond in different situations. So, you know, I found people were very engaged. And then we had a couple of groups that Pastor Steve led an online group, but the full 6-week group of that. And then another layperson led a small group on that as well. So, and we've had a few other groups continue online, some regular small group. And so it's, in some ways, people seem very freer in some ways online than you might expect. But then there's also some of the limitations. So you have to really find ways for people to be able to share and get to know each other. But I think that in some ways there is a little bit more freedom in some groups, but it's different. You know, we're not going to lie, but it's a different connection. But I've seen some really genuine connections, and even beyond some of the stories we've heard from online worship. And you know, you're on the ground there, Curt, but we've had people from far afield. We've had someone who's been tuning in from Mexico. Pastor shared a story that someone that he had known from the past tuned in and ended up coming to Christ. So our reach has expanded significantly in many ways during that, and that's been one of the blessings. So yeah, but we just got
it's go for it.
Someone said clarification needed, Jesse, and then said you have a Bible app. So maybe say a little bit about the Bible app, the Bible reading things that we've done.
Yeah, so if you go to garfieldchurch.org/Bible app, APP, I think it's all one word, right? I'm gonna go with it is. Yeah. But if you go online, the Bible app is an app that's by lifechurch.tv, and Craig Rochelle is the senior pastor there. It's just an app that goes on your phone. It's got the Bible and standard translations of the in multiple languages. And then we have done in the past, we've done reading plans where as a group of the church, we read a devotional every day. We read a scripture that goes with the devotional. And then you can put some comments like, this is what the verse was teaching me today, and answer that. And then you can see what other people are. It works as a nice accountability tool for people that are saying, I want to get into the scriptures and allow the scriptures to transform me. Pastor Chip taught on that, 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 sermons ago, that is a key discipline for us. So, it's just a tool. It's not our own app, but we have done studies. We should probably do a study kicking off the school year, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There are other creative ministries coming out online. There's something called, what is it called? Biblical training, but Flora Mark is leading a group on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 a.m. where they're doing exercises together, and you can get any level of fitness and then reading scripture. So the best place to go for anything that's going on, including our worship services, including the things during the week like Faith on Fridays, is to go to our website and look for Digital Faith and small groups. Biblical Strength Training is what the group is called, and anybody can join that. So that would be another option. So, but we're always open for ideas, suggestions, and other things that would be helpful for folks to grow in their faith. We are, you were talking about fatigue. We're going to start a new series this Sunday. Is the last sermon on in our teaching series, Planted, but we're going to start a series then after that called Gospel and Film. And so Pastor Chip, Scott, Steve, and I are all going to preach a sermon that refers to one of our favorite movies. And you're going to have chances, all of you, to guess which out of 5 movies, which is the particular pastor's favorite out of that. And there will be prizes involved. So more about that soon. But just to give something that's a little fun. So we're looking forward to that in August, a little bit later.
Terry, what's a movie on your top 10? So don't give away your top, not one, but what's a top 10 movie for you?
Well, I would say Dead Poets Society gets in there.
Oh,
which is very old.
Good choice,
but a good one. And I did. This is also going to date me, but Yellow Submarine. Have you even heard of that? No, it's a Beatles.
I heard of it. I was gonna say it's a Beatles reference of some kind. So, yeah. Nice.
So,
nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that series. I think, I'm reminded of, kind of the saying, laughter is the best medicine. Right. There's actually tons of research out there on the benefits of laughter. And I think a lot of us probably in this time, you get casual laughter, right, over the proverbial water cooler when you're at work, when you're out and about with people. Smiles are contagious. We go out in public, you can't see anybody's face right now. So you don't get that contagious laughter, that contagious just feel good endorphins. So maybe a good idea is to go watch a comedy movie or something, to lift your spirits up. But I know I've been watching The Office on Netflix, the old series, but my business partner quotes it all the time, and I hadn't watched it, so I was like, all right, I gotta watch this series. But it's it's kind of, it puts you in a better mood sometimes. So another little tip, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I going back to what you said about not looking at yourself like if you're on Zoom, it's a metaphor for it's easy to get lost in ourselves and the stories we tell ourselves about our reality. And the truth is, God's still God, and God is still in control, regardless of what we understand or don't understand. and that there is a joy that goes beyond circumstances. So when you talk about laughter and the importance of laughing, and seeing that that's part of what keeps us, how do I say, like sustains us really. And I think it's important to look at those things. And so when we are connecting virtually with folks, we are really doing everything we can to make a real connection. But I think we need to allow for the fact that it doesn't always have to be serious. That's why we're doing the film series, or the gospel in film. That it's the gospel is is serious. It's because it's seriously important, but we don't take ourselves too seriously, I guess we like to say around here. So
yeah.
But I guess anything else that you have been sort of thinking about as you look towards the future as in online ministry, like what you think might be different in the future, or just things that we should really make sure we keep on doing, or just any reflections, I guess, as you think about it.
Yeah, I think we're trying to keep things fresh. The news cycle, so to speak, is so short today. It's no longer even a 24 hours. It seems like it's minute by minute. And so we're trying to stay fresh and relevant without being a production, with still being authentic and real with people, and not just a showy,
right,
look good, sound good kind of thing. And so I think that's where I see us going in the future, is continuing to be authentic with people and interactive, and relational. We're such a relational church, and as Christians, we're called to be relational people. And I think early on in this, a lot of people that were more introverted are like, hey, this is, I think, like you said, like we can kind of get lost in ourselves. And so I think the push for the next 6 months is going to be to how can we use digital ministry to push ourselves outside of ourselves?
Right.
What can we do to get beyond just the walls of our normal selves? You're seeing a lot of vitriol on Facebook and all social right now. And we're going to have to be really diligent and really committed to being a positive among the negatives.
Yeah.
We're going to have to really commit to being light among darkness, because we know up in November at least it's going to probably be pretty ugly, and it already has been. And that's not picking sides or pointing at fingers. That's just across the board. And I think as a church, we're called to be more than that. So, real authentic relationships. We're trying to, you'll see me on Sunday morning, shooting on my iPhone in my office. I think you're going to see more of that stuff. Production value might go down, but authenticity will go up. And I think that is important, that you see us in our natural habitats, as you probably screaming in the background and everything else. Like, our lives are just as messy as everybody else's. So I think that, to me, is really where the next push comes. Is we've seen too much on social, especially, of everything looks great and perfect, but life's messy.
Yeah.
And it's okay to show some of that. So my hope that's the direction we go, Terry. I don't know how realistic or how comfortable people are going to be with that. But I think we've got to build deep relationships that are still virtual, that are still online, but that we can get there. So there is hope beyond this, and it's not to get rid of the social, but it's to integrate it, I think, even more, so that it's natural, because it feels fake at some level.
Right, but it's not going
we were
anywhere.
taught earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think an interesting.
No, and so
I think
go
an
ahead.
interesting turn of this conversation, and a few people have just come in, so we're just having a conversation about online ministry and what it's been like, where it's going. But so on the one hand, I think we're saying like it's important to stay connected, and we have these tools to do it online. We want to remain authentic, and we want to remain engaged. We want to remain fresh, and we've also been giving some tips. You've shared some good ones on how to remain really kind of human and grounded and centered in this. So, if you're on a Zoom meeting like this, don't hide your image, so you're not thinking about yourself, and being able to laugh and just kind of let go. And I think that in order, and you talk about the vitriol online and need to be a different witness, but I think there's also, so on the one hand, we really want to engage with you online, but I think it's also good to take a break from online so that you're not just, I've heard the term doom scrolling, which is when people, at 11 at night or 2 in the morning, they just start going through the feed and going down into a spiral. And, but Paul says in Philippians, whatever is good, whatever is true, whatever is beautiful, think on those things, right? So I think there's,
Right.
I guess what I'm in a long-winded way saying is let's be intentional about the time we are online and use it for connection and use it for ministry, and then take a break from it. And, little things like I'm not very good at it, but I try to put my phone away when my husband and I are trying to relax at night. I don't always do it very well, but I just want to leave it in another room. I'm not looking at it because it doesn't do any good, and I just want to be present. So I think be present when we can. And so it may seem ironic, but I think the best way that we can stay engaged with the ways that we have available right now is to take breaks from them. And then they become more powerful. Like, it may seem ironic, but I think there may be some truth in that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I spend almost less time on Facebook than I used to, even though it's a more important tool for me to engage in people. I have to be really intentional about what posts I'm reading or who I'm, interacting with, because it can spiral really quickly.
Yep.
I like to follow politics, for instance, and I follow politics on Twitter mostly, but I created a second Twitter account, not to like post stuff, but just to be able to separate out things that tend to be more negative from like my sports and my church leaders and my motivational speakers and my friends are on one page, and then I want to look at some political stuff, I'll go there. But it helps me to control that. You can't do that on Facebook, but I think it's okay to separate out some people, put them on mute. That's a great button. You don't have to unfriend them, but you can mute them. And try to be a positive influence on people. And that doesn't mean like post pictures of kitties, because I don't like kitties all that much. Anyways, they're cute once in a while.
Dogs are good.
But dogs are good. Wait, ready?
Yeah. Aww.
Can you see my dog?
I do. He's very cute.
She's sleeping on the chair. She's sleeping on the chair next to me. So, but yeah, I mean, post authentic things that are real. They don't have to be silly or just frivolous, but staying out of those negatives, and trying not to get caught in that anger loop. But yet we still have to balance that with like the cries of injustice that are going on in the country right now, and the brokenness is there. So it's like, don't ignore that stuff, but don't get lost in it either. I think is probably what you're trying to say too, I would think.
Right. Yeah. You're not trying to put blinders on, but I think setting limits and just, I think being intentional versus the just mindlessly. And we did get some feedback from Nikki, who said, "Shame on you, my cat is awesome." So from your city.
I didn't say anything about her cat. Nothing about her cat. I'm sure it's great. But my dog's definitely cuter. So, Terry, I haven't heard your dog bark today. Are you at home?
No, the reason I have these things in the background is I'm at my husband Joe's office at his store. So that no barking dog. But I will say, and if you've watched, and it's, not great when it happens, but our 2-year-old German Shepherd barks when we're at home because she's protecting us from any human that goes down our street here in Lakewood. But
it's important.
I was listening to a national podcast yesterday and I heard somebody's dog barking in the background. So I was a little vindicated.
Nice. Nice.
Oh,
There's
well.
my pup. She's coming up to say hi. So yeah,
No, my husband now is.
So yeah, it's a tricky. Is Joe behaving himself?
No, he's barking in the background. Oh, good Lord.
I love it. I love it.
It may be a sign that it's time for us to wrap up.
I think it probably is, but well, thanks for the conversation, Terry. I
gotcha.
I think my takeaway from our conversation is that virtual ministry, digital ministry, whatever you want to call it, is a two-edged sword. There's tons of great opportunity and possibility there, and there's lots of downfalls. So turn your Zoom camera off, or turn your self view off on your Zoom when you're on a meeting. Watch a comedy, a lighthearted something, and be a light out there, I think, are my 3 takeaways for today. So
yeah, and be intentional and take breaks when needed, because if it just God had, and I'm terrible at this, so I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world, but there is a commandment to keep the Sabbath, and to rest. And so I think that part of our fatigue is because it's an unrelenting, screen, and just so many distractions. So that's something in terms of, our souls need care and need Sabbath. So
yes.
Anyway, so I appreciate the conversation. It was a little bit of a Sabbath in a way. We got to laugh and connect with a few folks. So to those of you who tuned in, we're glad you were here. Hope you got something out of it. If you think of other ways we can be helpful in terms of online ministry, let us know. Terry at garfieldchurch.org, Curt at garfieldchurch.org. And so good to be with y'all. And
all right.
Have a good rest of the day. All right. See ya. Bye, everybody.
See ya.